you everyone for tuning in today. My name is Tyler Rice. I am a co-founder of the Digital Wellness Institute, and I am also a certified digital wellness educator. Really thankful for Alex and Juan today for bringing me in to talk to this incredible group about digital wellness and the importance that it can provide, not only in one's personal lives, but also in their professional. Digital wellness is a topic that has increased in prominence really in the age of what I would say is kind of remote and digital technology. So thinking about the proliferation of smartphones and the kind of always on nature that it can create. Internationally, digital wellness is referred to as digital well-being. And by the end of this session, I plan to leave you with a clear understanding of what it is, why it's important, and why individuals in the legal services industry, such as yourselves, can benefit from it both personally and professionally. But as we begin today, I'd like to invite you to really bring attention to your digital devices. Notice how many tabs you have open on your browser while you're watching this video. Think about where your phone currently is. If it's on your desk or if it's in your pocket, I'd invite you just to take one quick moment and perhaps move it to a different location where it won't be a source of distraction. Then focus and bring attention and intention to this session and your time that you're investing in this learning. Think for a moment, what are you trying to get out of it? What can you make better in your relationship with technology? If you wish, feel free to grab an old-fashioned pen and paper, and let's begin. So digital wellness, what is it? It is defined as that optimal state of health and well-being that a person using technology is capable of achieving. Now, the key word here is optimal, right? And obviously that infers that there is something called an suboptimal amount of technology. But here's the kicker, right? There is no clinically defined amount of tech usage that is considered optimal nor suboptimal. Our journey and our relationship to digital wellness is all about introspection. It's all about self-reflection, asking ourselves, is the way I'm using technology maximizing my productivity and well-being? And if not, having the foresight to recognize that and take steps to address it. Who is digital wellness for? Well, frankly, it is for anyone and everyone using technology today. Here's a quick hidden secret though. Digital wellness is actually a tool for those who want to get ahead. And what do I mean by that? I mean, people who want to get ahead in life, to get more out of it. People who want to get ahead in work, to reclaim elements of their productivity and their well-being that have been lost in the digital era. It is a tool that by the end of this session, I hope you will use to power whatever your goals are, both personally and professionally. So let's begin with tenet one of that, which is well-being. The way we've traditionally thought about well-being is shown here on this pyramid, right? We think about the physical, the emotional, the social, the spiritual, all of this combined, but unfortunately, this model does not account for the role and the impact that technology plays in our day-to-day life and our day-to-day well-being. From hours spent on screen that can leave us feeling achy and fatigued, to the eye strain that we might feel after looking at a screen for 9-10 hours a day, to ultimately the way that technology impacts our mental health. We cannot talk about well-being without talking about the digital. As such, law firms, businesses, every professional services industry player out there today have an operational imperative to help employees and help individuals improve in their digital well-being. Because specifically when lawyers aren't at their personal best, they aren't able to be at their best for their firms, their families, or their clients. So digital wellness is not just about the individual, it is about the business. And when businesses recognize the importance of it and invest the time, the energy, and the resources into improving it, they can actually derive business value from it. Continuing on, we at the Digital Wellness Institute created a modern iteration of the well-being pyramid that you just saw a moment ago. And at the center of all of this, at the center of this wheel, is the digital. And it's surrounded by 8 dimensions that are all interconnected, from productivity to environment to communication and others. The model really shows us that we cannot thrive and we cannot flourish as humans if any one of these elements is out of sync. So let me explain that. So take, for example, digital communication, right? When our digital communication is left unbounded and we are receiving notifications at all hours of the workday, we are very likely to have impacted our productivity, okay? And when we impact our productivity and spend a certain amount of time during the workday on tasks unrelated to work, oftentimes we end up working longer hours, taking work home with us to make up for the lack of work that was done during the traditional 8-hour workday. When we do that, we often have to neglect our physical health, right? We aren't able to go for that evening run or that evening workout class like we wanted to. And when we're not able to invest time, resources, and energy into that, our mental health can be impacted, which, as I'm sure you can guess, can impact our relationships as well. So that quick exercise is just to illustrate how every single one of these dimensions is interconnected. And so digital wellness is really a holistic view, taking a holistic view on all of those dimensions and asking, am I flourishing? For the duration of this presentation, we're going to focus on 2 of these elements in particular, and that's going to be productivity and environment. And while I wish we had time to dive into the remaining 6, unfortunately, time constraints don't allow. But I would just recommend anybody that's interested in looking at them holistically at all 8 to visit digitalwellnessinstitute.com for trainings and resources that will help you align technology with your best interests in each of those 8 dimensions. And I'll save some time at the end for additional tools and resources. But with that, let's dive into productivity and find ways that we can reclaim elements of productivity that have been lost in the digital era. I love to start off the discussion on productivity with something that's called the Moore's Law. And you may be familiar with it, but in 1965, the founder of Intel, his name was Gordon Moore, he observed that the computing power of microchips doubled every 2 years. He then came up with a theory that that would continue henceforth from now until the future, that every 2 years, the computing power of technology would double. Do you think that he was right? Well, actually, you may be surprised to learn that the computing power has evolved even faster than he had originally anticipated. But with this explosion of hyperconnectivity, big data, artificial intelligence, all of this has increased the pressure that we as humans feel to match our productive output. So think about just from 1965 to 2022, how much computing power has changed and the pressures that we feel in conjunction to actually optimize and increase our productivity as well. Do you feel more productive than you were in 1965 or in 1995 for that matter? The answer may be yes, but at what cost? And at what cost to our physical, our emotional, and our mental well-being? For us to think about productivity in the digital era, we can't, again, separate the role that technology has played in making us more productive, but also being a source for distraction. So I want to stop and think just for a moment, how many hours a day do you spend on screen trying to keep up, trying to keep up with this perpetual need to be productive and to be always on? Well, globally, the average person spends a total of 7 hours a day looking at their screen. And for those in the legal services industry, I know for a fact that that time is much, much, much longer. This time is also inclusive of the amount of time that we spend tapping, swiping, and picking up our phone, which is a startling 2,617 times during our waking hours. When we engage with technology at all hours of the day, we can't just think about the time that we are investing in this technology, but we must think about the cognitive impact that this is having on our ability to be productive. Studies show that every time we get a distraction from whatever we're doing in the moment, that deep work that we're feeling in flow, when we get a distraction such as a ping or a ding or a notification, It takes anywhere between 70 seconds and 23 minutes to get back to that original state of productivity. This can obviously result in a significant impact, not only to our focus, but our creativity and ultimately our work output. Thus, we are actually creating more work for ourselves, more inefficiencies in our day when we don't set healthy boundaries. It leads us to longer working hours during the day, more stress at night, and ultimately a lower output and a lower quality of work. So let's dissect why we feel so compelled to check our devices 2,617 times a day. And then let's discuss some meaningful tools for change. Seemingly every minute that we hear a ping or a ding, it induces a Pavlovian response, compelling us to reach for our phones. And is it any doubt that today we are living in what people call the attention economy? Well, former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris explains that phones actually operate like clever slot machines. They offer variable rewards designated to capture our attention and keep us engaged. This ultimately makes sense because the internet was shaped around advertising to maximize page views and effectively turn human attention into a commodity that can be bought and sold. The more attention a developer can keep, the more valuable their app or their website will be. Digital Wellness Institute speaker Nir Eyal describes what is called the hook model, which is kind of a modern day iteration of the Pavlovian dog's experiment. And what it really is it's a psychological framework used by app and game developers to explain why we as humans feel so compelled to check our devices so regularly. It goes as follows, and it begins with the trigger. The trigger is that audible, that visual sensation, that physical sensation that is used to attract our attention. It could be that ring of your phone, the "you've got mail" audible sound, or any sort of a buzz that you feel in your pocket. Next is the action. It's the behavior taken in response to the trigger, reaching for the pocket to grab the phone. After the action comes the variable reward. And the variable reward is what Tristan Harris was saying with the clever slot machine analogy. This is the dopamine rush that comes to our brain when we receive a like on social media or a warm text from a loved one. It's something that induces emotions, that brings dopamine to our brain. And ultimately, the key here is that we never know whether when we open up our phone, if we're going to be receiving that dopamine or not, which makes it all the more enticing. Last, but certainly not least, is the investment of time, energy, resources that we spend liking and engaging with content and creating a system and a cycle whereby it continues to pull others in and creates this model whereby we are all ultimately hooked. So the good news about all of this is that how we use and how we interact with our devices, it's a habit. And with awareness, we can begin to shift our habits from attention to intention so we can build and cultivate healthier ones in the process. So I'd like to invite you to stop and reflect for just a moment. How does your current tech usage align with your intentions? Do you find yourself more distracted and hooked than you'd like? Do you find that you have any digital usage habits that drain you and keep you from peak productivity and well-being during the workday and at home? While it may seem like the system is designed to keep you hooked, we as humans have agency that allows us to better understand these dynamics and ultimately take steps to address and reform them. As the quote here says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. We can use a four-step process outlined here to shift from that attention economy to an intentional setting. The first step is to assess. Use screen time tools that are built into the iOS and Android devices to actually get a baseline understanding of your typical screen time throughout the week and your pickup count. Many of us might be surprised by how many it is. On average, it's about 4.5 hours on a per person per day basis. Next, ask, does my current usage align with my goals and my intentions? Or alternatively, does it inhibit my ability to reach peak productivity and well-being, both at work and at home? Third, address. Beginning to shift attention to intention means creating a plan to bring about your desired change. It all starts with a goal. For instance, this week, my goal was to have personal screen time of no more than an average of 2 hours per day. I also wanted to limit my pickups to under 100 pickups each day. So I wrote that on a piece of paper, and I created a plan that would allow me to actually reach that goal. The key here is to really be intentional about this plan, to think first and foremost about what that goal is, and then to implement a strategy behind it that helps you reach that goal. Promote deep work, time block, use the Pomodoro method to essentially block out time where you are going to be focused on the job and eliminate all other distractions that might keep you from being so. And ultimately fight the fragmented attention that comes from that. Last but not least, in order for us to actually reach these goals, we need to be held accountable. We need to set reminders for ourselves daily, post-it notes on the bathroom mirror, or even on our computer screen. Better yet, find a partner, find somebody else within your household, within your team or your company to check in and ask you how you're doing in response to your goals, and ultimately help them help you stay on track. So as we wrap up the productivity section, I wanted to just clarify that it is within our ability as humans to fight what is the attention economy and to actually make personal changes in our daily usage. We are empowered as people to do so. And it all starts with goal setting and having a support network that can keep us aligned. Second, we're going to move into environment and the role that the environment plays, not only in our productivity, but in the way that we actually engage with technology and can redesign our environment, both from a physical and a technological standpoint, to be more efficient. To begin, I'd like to invite you to think about the way your physical office environment has changed, specifically in the legal services industry over the last 30 years. Beginning in 1992, lawyers would have desks that were filled with books and papers, perhaps a personal pager or an office phone nearby, and maybe an early iteration of a desktop computer. But what there was for certain was a clear delineation between the work and the home. Fast forward 10 years to 2002, and perhaps a laptop or a desktop computer with a powerful word processor was on your desk. And not only did this help you review legal documents, but you were able to increase your efficiency by writing faster and with more clarity than ever before. Google or Ask Jeeves was something that was used and leveraged by professionals to make research exponentially faster. 10 years into the future, in 2012, smartphones enter the picture and become a staple of not only our office experience, but our home experience as well. Texts from families and friends ding while we're trying to review contracts or do deep work. A new notification from Candy Crush or Words with Friends reminds you what fun is just within reach. And today, 2022, the world of work as we know it has shifted entirely upside down, and many of us feel like this worker here. The boundaries between work and home are entirely blurred, with hours spent working each evening because we simply weren't productive enough during the traditional workday due to the distractions that surround us. As this environment has changed so drastically in the last 30 years, ask yourself, in which era, in which decade was I actually the most productive, the most efficient, and the happiest worker? Your environment impacts your conscious and your subconscious behaviors. So setting up your surroundings to support your desired habits is a key. Ask yourself, how can I change my physical environment to promote productivity and well-being, just like I found during that peak decade that I just referenced? One of the easiest ways for us to actually cultivate digital wellness habits is to create device-free zones, and the starting point is at home. A good place in particular is in the bedroom to create a digital sanctuary. You can actually make a conscious effort not to bring your work life into your home life if you simply designate your bedroom as a phone-free sanctuary. Setting up this boundary will increase your capacity for deep sleep, leaving you to feel rested and restored and more productive in the next day ahead. Now, in the work environment, consider adopting a policy of phone-free meetings. This has proven successful for leaders like Arianna Huffington, who has made it a point within her company to improve meeting efficiency by eliminating distractions and ultimately improving social interactions and the quality of relationships of people within teams. In your personal office, consider investing in an old-fashioned office phone, a landline, or a distinct cell phone that you can use for only client calls or for emergencies. Then, if you do this, you can leave your personal device in a room outside of your office, or you can put it in a phone lockbox to make sure that whatever is distracting you during the workday is no longer a source of distraction, and you can create an environment where you are productive and efficient as possible. When we introduce these positive nudges into the environment, we can actually create healthier habits and really find that peak era of productivity and well-being at work and at home. But just like the physical environment, it's really important that we take time to optimize our digital environment so we use it with intention as well. Take a look at your phone right now. Create a mental note of the top used applications. I'm assuming they might be things like Gmail, Twitter, maybe a favorite news app, perhaps. But now take a step back to reflect. Which amongst all of these applications on your phone do you feel you actually need on a regular basis? My guess is that you have some digital decluttering to do within your personal phone. And so I'd invite you to actually channel your inner Marie Kondo and turn your phone into a space that supports valuable and meaningful usage of technology. Let's outline just 4 or 5 steps here that can help you do that. Step 1, declutter for priority. Delete any app that you truly do not need or use. You can reorganize your main screen to prioritize the ones that you use often, which can ultimately reduce the feeling that you're searching for a needle in a haystack when you're looking for one app amongst hundreds. Next, declutter for utility. Prioritize the apps that provide utility to you in your personal and your professional lives. Perhaps that's things like the calendar or the weather app or the calculator. Delete all apps that you haven't used in the past 2 months and ultimately delete those that you've only used one time. Step 3, declutter for mindfulness. Think about all of the apps that do not support your ideal relationship with technology. This could be apps that cause anxiety, stress, or ones that leave you feeling hooked. You might find that there's an app that falls under this category that you still think you need to stay in touch. Facebook Messenger is that one for me. But if that is the case, consider actually deleting the app from your phone and using the desktop version of it instead. And trust me, from personal experience, this will result in a drastic reduction in app usage, and yet you still feel like you have everything you need. Step 5 is to be brave, right? You can always re-download an app if necessary. But the key here is really to increase and promote your sensitivity for how you engage with your devices and to help you better understand those that take away from your productivity and well-being from those that actually promote and enhance it. During the course of this conversation today, we have taken a deep dive, albeit brief, into productivity and environment. And we have so much to unlock as individuals. We need to understand that we have agency to change both our individual behaviors and the systems around us that keep us feeling hooked. Being a digitally well lawyer or being a digitally well professional in any industry, it starts at the company level, right? We cannot separate our well-being from the workplace. And with that, it starts with leaders. If we're to practice digital wellness in our personal lives, we need company leaders to sign on and help us to identify and create healthy boundaries for tech. Next, we need policies, whether it's a phone-free meeting policy adopted by Arianna Huffington, or providing clear guidelines for when employees have the right to disconnect on vacation, on nights, or on weekends. Being strategic about our digital wellness-related policies can actually promote workplace productivity and well-being by giving employees that opportunity to disconnect, to recharge, and to show up the next day being their best selves. Last, it's about training. We need digital wellness education to be a part of the employee onboarding and upskilling experience. That's why the digital wellness, we've created 4 15-minute learnings covering all of the dimensions of digital flourishing, because we believe that when employees are taking DEI education trainings and fraud, waste, and abuse learnings, they also need to learn the tenets of digital wellness. Finally, as we wrap up today, I wanted to leave you with 2 tools that can help you along your path to digital wellness. The first is a survey for individuals, and it's called the Digital Flourishing Survey. It helps individuals consider questions pertaining to each of those 8 dimensions of digital flourishing, and then provides them with a roadmap for change. Feel free to take a screenshot of this or visit the QR code there, which will take you to a direct link to the survey. Next, as mentioned, we recognize that individuals cannot reach the state of flourishing when they have an underlying work culture that demands a constant connectivity to one's devices. So in fact, to help organizations visualize and understand the business value to having digitally well practices, we've created the world's first digital wellness insights tool, the Insights Dashboard, that really gets to the heart of employee well-being and shows at the leadership level the business value to be gained by having a culture that promotes employee well-being in the digital era. You can also visit that at digitalwellnessinstitute.com. Last but certainly not least, I wanted to include a free copy of our best-selling ebook today. This is something that you can use within your teams, within your personal lives, what have you, to really enhance your relationship with technology, to understand the science behind it, and to take meaningful steps towards improving it. All of that is to say, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you all today. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to share more about digital wellness, and would invite you to dive in deeper if you have an interest in kind of reclaiming that productivity and that well-being in the digital era. We have an opportunity as humans to really shape the future of tech, to shape the future of work. And it is an individual responsibility to really bring awareness to this and to find our own optimal state of device usage moving forward. With that, I want to thank Alex and Juan one more time, and the entire law group for inviting me in and paying attention to this really important issue. And I wish you all the best on your digital wellness journeys moving forward.